Well, we are still putting out some extra chairs for this wonderful turnout. Thank you all for being here. I do want you to know that there is some coffee right outside these doors if you would like some hot coffee on this rainy night. And there's also some water over here. So we'll get started in just a few moments. So if you would like some water or coffee, please go ahead and help yourself. For a chair, there are still some up here up front on the right hand side. There are some more chairs coming up right up here in the front.
How are you?
Good.
We're almost full. We can do a couple of rows going into the fall.
We've also got about 6 right here. Just for hospitality, I want you to know there's water over here, there's coffee right out here in the hallway, and if you need a bathroom, just go out these doors, go out the second set of doors, turn left, and there are bathrooms immediately on your right. And if you need anything else, I'll be hanging out in that back corner. You just come grab me and tell me what you need, and I'll be happy to help you. We are so thankful that all of you are here for this wonderful night, for us to be able to listen to our friend, Rabbi Mathew Marko, and thank you, Rabbi Marko, for accepting our invitation to be here tonight. I also want to thank our Equip Bicentennial Committee, who has put together this Religions of the World speaker series. If you're on that committee, will you just stand real quick? Really appreciate all the hard work that you have done. So let me introduce Rabbi Marko to you. He is the rabbi at Congregation Beth, Israel. We actually first met a year and a half ago, I would say, at an Interfaith Hospitality Network. We were on a panel together and actually ended up sitting next to each other on the panel. And we were just all very pleasantly surprised that night. So we were supposed to bring stories of hospitality from our faith, and a number of us brought the Abraham story. So it was so fun to hear the Abraham story from all these different faith perspectives.
We were the first, you understand.
I so glad that we get to share Old Testaments with you. Those Hebrew scriptures are quite wonderful.
I dig them.
So, Rabbi Marko, he hails from Brooklyn, New York. And he also spent time in California, where I happen to be born. So we have that in common, just an hour from Los Angeles. So he was in the Los Angeles area where he did some teaching. You said, though, that you survived there.
That was my wife's wording. She wrote that. So, that's why my wife wrote that bio, not me. So.
I got it. Okay. He is an actor, and you can probably get that from his passion, and he does have some acting degrees. He's also a woodworker. So I think that's an interesting background.
So the world's second Jewish carpenter to become a rabbi.
He has worked professionally in the Hippodrome State, there you go, thank you, State Theatre in Florida, and also the Odyssey Theatre in Los Angeles. If he doesn't already have an interesting enough life for you, you are a licensed scuba diver, you are a skydiver, and you're a motorcycle rider. You live on the wild side.
My mother said I've been searching for something, so maybe I found it.
His calling, though, really, his interest is in Torah, Jewish community, spiritual modernism. Did I read that right? Modernism, yeah, and activism, justice. Yeah, no, you're interested. He has degrees from the University of Florida in Gainesville, and then there he has a minor in modern Hebrew language and literature, his master's of rabbinic literature from the American Jewish University, and his rabbinic ordination from the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. You're going to find him a delight if you can't tell already. He will present for around about 40-45 minutes, and then he's going to take questions. Sure. Thank you for doing that as well. So please help me. Welcome.
Do I need this? Can you hear me? Yeah. Am I at a good distance? Is it picking up right here? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Thank you for having me. We're pretty much the same. I always jokingly say that you believe God has come, but He's coming back. We believe He hasn't come, but He's coming. So when He gets here, we'll ask Him. and if He knows what's good for Him, He'll say, "I don't recall." But it's been a while. But honestly, I think, I'm a parent. We have parents in the room, right? When I look and see my children, well, they're big now, but I can think when they were, playing nicely, it makes me feel really warm and wonderful and good. And the times where I looked at them and I saw them fighting with one another, it's a physical pain. It hurts deep inside. And imagine you have 8 or 9 billion children. And how that feels. And that's the only thing I can put my mind around, that when we come together like this in unity and friendship, it has to be pleasing to the Holy One, because we use different words, we approach in different ways, but ultimately we're all the same, we're all trying for the same thing. And if there is a loving God, and I truly believe there is, I've dedicated my life to that, I don't believe she cares what name we use or what path we choose, as long as we're trying to be decent human beings and trying to add holiness to our lives and trying to find our way to God. So I'm going to give you kind of a Judaism on one foot. And what does on one foot mean? I think Hai probably knows the story I'm referring to already. And I'll be brief. If, as I'm going through, you have a question, you want to stop and interrupt me, that's a very Jewish thing to do. So we encourage that. We encourage back and forth. We have a millennia of debate. That's part of our tradition. There's a story of one of our great sages, Rabbi Hillel, who lived in the 1st century before the Common Era, about 100 years before the life of Jesus. And a Roman guard was mocking him and was teasing him and said he'll convert to this quaint little provincial religion of Judea if Hillel could teach him the entirety of the Torah while standing on one foot. And Hillel famously lifted one foot and said, "What is hateful to you, don't do to somebody else. The rest is commentary, go and learn." Now, I think, and I actually spent some time researching different faiths to see which faiths have a version of the golden rule. And I stopped at about 40 or so, and after I finally decided that we all have it. It's worded a little bit differently. Do unto others as you have to do unto yourself. The Muslims say it, Jews say it, Native Americans, we all say it. We're not quite as good at doing it, but that's really the essence of it all. So in terms of Judaism, there are three main streams of Judaism. There's Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. I'm conservative. Jokingly, people say the lazy, hazy, and crazy. I'm hazy, and I'm firmly in the middle of, okay. It doesn't mean politically conservative. It refers to conserving tradition where it should be, but also striking a balance and finding meaning in the modern world. I'm going to be talking to you as a conservative Jew only because that's my perspective, but know that within Judaism there's always different opinions and different views. Our holiest book is the Torah. I mentioned that I brought a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll with me, and there'll be time to do a little Jewish petting zoo stuff where you can come and take a look at it. When we say Torah, it refers to a couple of different things. Either the 5 books of Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But the word Torah also just means teaching. So when Jews speak of Torah, sometimes we're referring particularly to the 5 books. But more often than not, when we say Torah, we're talking about knowledge. We're talking about understanding. We're essentially talking about revelation and the notion that God is revealing God's self all the time. We just need to be listening. When we say Torah, we also sometimes refer to Bible, what you would call the Old Testament, we call Tanakh, which is the Torah, Nevi'im, which are prophets. That would be, Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Isaiah and Joshua and all those people. And the writings, Ketuvim, that would be the Proverbs, the Psalms, and some of the other books like, and depending where you place them in your canon, Chronicles, Esther, things like that. And depending where you date them, it probably goes up to around Daniel. I would say Daniel is probably about the latest book based on the language that's used. That's in our canon. And then, of course, make the leap to your canon. So I want to go back a few thousand years to the ancient Near and Middle East. And in those days, people believed in many different gods, right? Each power of nature had its own god. Each city, each location had its own god. And for the most part, the gods were seen as dangerous, selfish beings. And so you would offer sacrifices to the gods to appease them, because if the gods were happy, then you could expect things like rain and children and good crops. But if you angered the gods, well then watch out. So generally in those days, people worshiped the gods out of fear and the need to appease them. And then a small nomadic tribe started to develop a very radically different idea of our place in the world, in God's place with us. Really a spiritual revolution, nothing short of that. They began to envision a world that was created and watched over by one God alone. And this God didn't have a body, didn't have a physical form, didn't need to be represented in an idol. And this was not a jealous God, but a God of pure love, and a God that didn't demand we serve out of fear and appeasement and bring food, but that we serve out of love and that we behave in an ethical manner, in a godlike manner, and that we don't feed God, we feed the hungry around us, that we serve God not out of fear but of love, devotion, and mutual respect, that we would be in covenant. A covenant is a contract, a two-way street with rights and responsibilities on either side, and it would be an ongoing covenant, creating the world and perfecting it. And there's a fancy name for this. We call it ethical monotheism, and from that, of course, we get the 3 major Abrahamic faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So this idea, this tribe, is represented in, we said the name already. Who am I talking about? Abraham and Sarah. Now, whether you believe they were actual Abraham and Sarah, or whether this represents a notion, an idea of when people started to shift away from a very, black and white notion of God and idolatry and a true relationship with the God of love in the universe. Either way, this was the birth of Judaism, and from this belief in one God of love, mercy, justice, and truth, we find ourselves sitting here today together. So how do we arrive at Judaism from the teachings of this patriarch Abraham and matriarch Sarah? They had children, Isaac and he married Rebecca, Jacob married Leah and Rachel, and this nomadic tribe somehow found their way down to Egypt. And we know this from, yes, the biblical record, but there's also fairly significant archaeological record from stilos and clay tablets. And they were most likely a group called Hibaro, sounds very similar to Hebrew, the Hibaro, and at some point we became enslaved to Pharaoh, and as the Torah recounts, Moses was called by God to lead us out. And you're all probably familiar with the story. I'm sure you've seen. Isn't it amazing how much Charlton Heston looks like Moses? Just right on the money. Good casting. Really good. Edward G. Robinson at Dayston, not quite as good. Let my people go, plague, so forth and so on. And with the power of God behind them, Moses leads the Jews out of Egypt and across the Red Sea. And we're brought to Mount Sinai. And that's our first national encounter with God. Up until this point, the covenant was very particular. It was a family. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their descendants. And then now we have this national revelation, this meeting, this encounter at Sinai. And for the first time, God makes a covenant with the entire people, the children of Israel, and receive the laws and the instruction of what God expects of us. And basically, the basis, of course, is the Ten Commandments. But this is just the beginning. They start to outline, though, a set of responsibilities. If you look at the first 5 commandments, are really a category of laws that are between human beings and God, right? They're just, Sabbath, I'm God, no idolatry, etc., etc. And we categorize all the laws of Torah that fall into that category as Benadam Makom. These are laws that are between God and humanity. The second 5 is a paradigm for Benadam L'Adam, Benadam L'Chavero, that are between human beings and human beings. They govern our interactions and how we're supposed to behave towards one another. I'll come back to that in a minute, but first I got to get this. There's usually an elephant in the room when a Jew comes and speaks, and I'm going to try to get that out of the way right now. And that, because no discussion of Judaism is complete without at least touching on the modern state of Israel. It's a very important part of it. The Torah tells us of God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then the entire Jewish nation. But part of that covenant is land-based. A large part of that covenant is the land itself. Abraham purchased the land from the Canaanites. Moses led us across the desert to the Promised Land. Joshua leads us across the Jordan River and helps us settle. Even outside of the biblical record, historically and archaeologically, the Jewish people have been there for thousands of years with Jerusalem as their capital. Who is the, see how big you are, who's the first king of Israel? For 50 points. Who said that? First, you get the first 50 points. So we'll give you 25. Don't really cost anything. So, yes, Saul, right? And then after Saul, his successor was David, exactly, David. And then his son Solomon, and Solomon's the one who builds the first temple in Jerusalem. And it was during this period that the prophets, like Isaiah, and Yechezkel, and Ezekiel and Jeremiah, lived and taught. Jewish prophets. Now, if you read the Hebrew Bible, you will find that the city of Jerusalem is mentioned 669 times. 669 times. And that's by the name Jerusalem, by the name Zion or Zion, it's named another 100 and something times as well. Now, I bring this up not to claim exclusive rights to anything, because I'm a man of peace, and I really